Hey, hey. Greetings from the quaint little beautiful seaside town of Seaside on the Monterey Peninsula. It is beautiful here. I love the weather here. It's June, and at night it's in the 50s, and during the day it's mostly in the 60s. And it's overcast a lot, but when the sun comes out it bumps up into the 70s, and it is amazing. Why am I here? Well, these awesome people here, Rich and Jackie, they saw a video of mine where I was restoring, in a way, vintage casement windows on a house that was 100 years old in Los Angeles. And they finally reached out to me to come up to work on their windows, and they said they had a threshold that they also wanted to have replaced with these French doors here. And I'm going to show you some close-ups, but I have to talk about what happens when you start doing home improvement work like this, because you don't know what you're getting yourself into. Oftentimes the homeowners have no idea what's going on, and I ran into an issue with this. Basically, this threshold job, making these doors work the way they were supposed to work originally, and also the front door, we're going to talk about all these things, is 3 days of work already. Full days of work. And I got help, right, from the homeowner, which was awesome. It was just very strange. So I want to give you guys some tips. I'm going to talk you through this particular job here. Main reason is when I first started making the parts for it, I showed pictures and people couldn't understand what I was doing or why I was doing it. So this is the threshold I made. Now this is the piece I had to make while I was installing it, where I had to, shape both ends to fit inside the house, and these little 3 holes here are for plugs I cut to hide the screws after I put it in. But this profile was messing a lot of people up because they couldn't understand what I was doing or why I did it. This isn't something you can just go to the store and buy, okay? And nobody can understand why I had this piece, this hunk here, coming out of the bottom. It didn't make any sense to anybody. Well, the initial idea was I was going to keep the lower part that was already supposedly original to the house and add this threshold to it. Store-bought thresholds are not shaped like this. They're usually flat across the top and they taper down like a chamfer on both sides. And then traditionally these days what people do is they put a piece of weather stripping on the bottom of a door. Something like this. It's got rubber on the bottom. This goes up against the front edge of your door, and this goes underneath. This is the worst thing you could put on your door. Stop doing this. Why? Because the moisture comes down. Eventually the paint you put here, or even the caulk, it fails over time. Water gets behind this, goes down the front edge of the door, sits here, and now your bottom of your door soaks up this moisture. One of the things you can do to help prevent that is to prime and paint the bottom of your door. Most carpenters don't do it. Most carpenters go through all the trouble of hanging the door, but then they don't take the door back down to seal the tops and the bottoms of the doors after they've cut the door to fit perfectly. It's an extra step, but you should always do that. I'm going to give you, this is, a lot of this what I'm going to be telling you here is for carpenters in general, because I'm up here and I'm shocked at what I saw here with this door. Not the best work. Pretty piss poor work on the install on this door. And since I've been here, I've been talking to people, including these homeowners and their family friend, who's an electrician in the area. He's about my age, and he's been doing his work as long as I've been doing mine. And he works in Carmel. He works in Pebble Beach. And he's seeing what I'm doing here, and he's telling me there's nobody up here, I mean, this is what I'm hearing, that's doing the sort of craftsmanship that I'm doing. I don't go around thinking I'm the best there is at this. I'm pretty good at it. I've been doing it a long time. It's just hard. It's hard for me to believe that there's people here with these homes up here, and they're hiring guys to do jobs, and the workmanship that they're getting out of it is garbage. And it really bothers me. So I'm going to give you some tips here. This was part of the problem. These doors they were installed around 2017, so they've been here a little while. But they were already starting to get some dry rot on the bottom. to the point where these screws weren't biting anymore. And that's what happens, again, because the moisture gets underneath there, sucks up from the bottom of the door. The two doors were sagging in and hitting, so they couldn't close one door and then the next door. They'd have to pull them together at the same time. It's a problem. I wasn't even here to do that. I was only here to deal with this. Well, we're going to get to all of this and how I fixed it and explain it to you. When I took the top threshold off, it was obvious that the threshold underneath of it was also rotting. And it had some insect damage. The house had been tinted, and I saw no signs of active termite damage, right? There was no live insects in there as I worked on it. But I had to remove the lower threshold. When I did that, the bottom of the king studs on either side of this door were also rotted away. So what I did was I made a new lower threshold. The homeowner went to the Home Depot and bought a 6x6 post of redwood. This is a section of it. I cut this on my table saw, running it this way, flipping it over, and running it again. This is the other section of it. And I created a new threshold with this profile right here, okay? And I made it longer so that it would go underneath where the king studs are on either side. I cut away the bottom of those king studs that were rotten, and I wedged in some 2x underneath that. And then the design here is so that we have this sort of thing. The reason, for those of you that can think here, I put that channel in now, you understand? Moisture, weather, whatever, can't get from this threshold underneath this threshold and into the house now. You understand that? Not an easy thing to fit. For me to fit this, and you'll see in here, because the job isn't completely finished. I'm not a painter. I'm not going to go through all. I could, but why pay me to do that when a homeowner could do it, or they can get a painter to come in for less than I would charge. So you'll see the trim isn't dialed yet. It's on, but it needs to be filled and painted and all that sort of thing. But what I had to do was cut the jamb on both sides, one at a certain height, one higher, because this threshold was longer, and I had to fit it underneath everything, drop it down, and then seal everything up. So it's way more weather tight now than it ever was, even originally when the house was built. Now, part of the issue with this thing, with these doors not closing correct, they were sagging in, is carpenters should know this. I've been doing this for so long that I already know. I was talking to them on the phone. They're telling me things, and I already know how to fix it. As a matter of fact, I made this threshold, this shape, over the phone with them. All I had them do was give me dimensions. I asked them for all the pertinent dimensions so I could make this profile exact. Okay? You're about to see what's going to happen. I'm sorry, I'm jumping around. You guys know me. It's a little bit of the weave here. But I do want to explain this real quick. The idea here is that your door is going to be shaped like this at the bottom. Again, not an easy thing for a lot of people, but if you call yourself a carpenter, if you call yourself a woodworker or a craftsman, you should be able to do this. You should be able to figure this out. If you can't do this, then you're a handyman. If all you do is hang a door and cut the bottom of the door square and that's your thing, and you're putting this on here, you're a handyman. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. If you're a carpenter, if you're a craftsman, then you should be able to figure this out. The bottom of my door, I cut it and then I shape it. So the bottom of the door is shaped like this, so it wraps down. And the idea here is that now the weather can't get in here and go up over this into your house. And now you've got wood on the bottom of the door. That's it. And you can treat that. So it's not going to run. And I have an airspace here. Now, in this situation, I didn't put these doors in. If I had put these doors in, I would have cut it perfect. So it's not a perfect setup. So what I ended up doing was making a custom weather strip on the front. Now there's a little clip I'm going to insert here in a moment as I talk here, showing you how I made that kind of on the table saw a little bit. And I'll talk about it in a moment, because the piece of oak that I used for that is the piece that came off of here when I shaped this piece. It's the piece that came away here is what I used for this weather stripping. I hope I'm making sense to you guys here. But getting back to the guy that hung the doors, the hinges come with screws this long. If you're hanging an exterior door, typically exterior doors are 1 3/4 inches thick. They're heavy. And over time, and in particular, there's another problem I guess I got to bring up. It's just one problem after another. But over time, what happens is they start sagging. And handymen start shaving off material where the door is hitting the jamb oftentimes. Well, really the way to do it is, on the top hinges, you should put at least one real long screw in there. Get that through the jamb material, which is typically only about 3/4 of an inch, into the king stud. And now your doors will never sag. If your doors are sagging, this is your first step to fix that. You don't remove material over here, you put a longer screw in the hinge, it sucks the door back up and it solves all your problems. If you find that your doorknob is no longer catching in the strike plate, and you look and it's lower, put a longer screw in the top hinge, it's going to suck the door up, and now it's going to hit right. It's actually pretty simple stuff. But part of the issue, and part of the reason why your doors might start pulling away, is if the doors weren't hung right. And I ran into that issue here where as the doors start closing, it bounces. It's like a spring feeling. And that's because on the hinge side of the door, it's hitting the jamb somewhere. Sometimes the jambs are not perpendicular to one another. Sometimes they're out on an angle. Whatever it is, you got to eyeball that and figure it out. And what happened here was the jokers that did this, they put like almost close to 1/4 of an inch of filler to make it look like they mortised the hinges in, right? And they did that because when they made these doors, they made them too thin. So and the guy who did it recognized it, and he realized that he couldn't mortise the hinges. If he would have mortised the hinges, the gap between the doors would have been too big. And they also added this molding front and rear, which in my opinion is not how you do it. In the old days, you did a lap, a half lap on each door. So each door closed into one another. So nothing here was really done correctly. This is just a modern way that people are doing things because there's not a lot of master craftsmen anymore like there was in the old days when they originally built it. So a guy like me comes along and I got to assess all of this stuff and figure it out. So beyond this threshold, I had to solve all these other issues to make these doors work. It was crazy. So I know this is a little all over the place. You guys know me. I'm off the cuff. I'm a one-take wonder. I'm not doing a bunch of takes and editing this together, okay? There's little clips I'm going to stitch together. We're about to get on with that. So I just explained what was happening with this. Let me insert a clip real quick right here of me on the table saw, right? Kind of milling, kind of like a goofy rebate on the back side of this oak, so I could put a piece of rubber in there. And we'll talk about that. All right, let's give you a look here from the outside first. It's kind of cool. I want you to notice how that rubber is just barely touching that threshold and pulling in. Of course, I had to mortise all this in. I think there's some snapshots of me doing that here. So we'll pull this down here. Come down here. And this is what I was talking about with the trim. So we still have to fill that, and somebody will paint that up. But I want you to watch this close here. And watch the rubber. And it barely just rubs. And you can see how I cut the door here. So we've got less than 1/8 of an inch, right, from the top of this oak to the bottom of that door. And the bottom of this door has been primed and it will be painted as well. But this is what you want. You do not want that aluminum to wrap underneath the door and trap that moisture. Okay. Now, here's where I had to remove a big hunk of material because the door was pinching on it. So they'll come in and they'll paint this stuff up, and you could see what was going on here. It was just a disaster. So this will get dealt with by another person because there's no point in paying me to do that. Right now it's all working, but you can see how I had to put these longer screws. And what I had to do was I had to use a chamfer tool to get the heads of these screws to sit flush with the hinge as well. That's another thing that a lot of guys aren't aware of. If you put your screws in on these hinges and the heads of these screws don't get down flush to the face here of this hinge, you can have your screws bind, and that creates that spring as well. And then the door will bounce and it's not going to close tight. What was happening is because all the material up here, the screws protruding, and all the material down here, when I went to close the door, it would stop here before it hit the stop up there. And now it comes in all the way. That's it. I'm gonna hit. Well. So all these problems are solved now. The doors are closing perfectly, and yeah, everybody's happy. This is well sealed down here now. Weather's not going to get in. It really can't drive up over this. And the key is now is when the doors are closed, we've got a pretty equal line of the bottoms of the doors in relation to the top of this threshold. And you can't see any light coming in. And it's funny, they have this fountain here. And before I showed up and did this, when the doors were closed, they could still hear the fountain. And there's an airport over here, and planes take off all day. And now with the way that I've got this door closing and sealed, we did it yesterday. There was a plane taking off, and when I closed the door, you couldn't hear the plane. When I opened the door, you can hear the, you can hear the plane. They're so happy when they close the door now, they can't hear the fountain. So, you know, all it takes is, in my opinion, caring, taking some pride in your work, observation, being a little bit of a Columbo, you know, close things, look at things, observe, see what's happening, and then solve the little incremental issues along the way and think it out. And you can come up with a better way to do things. The idea for this threshold down here is something I've had in my head forever. Now, when I was in Greece, I happen to be Greek, I noticed on the islands in particular, you know, there's not a lot of wood there. They cut all the trees down thousands of years ago. Sorry, I just wanted to back you out there in case you were too close on my face. Nobody wants to see that. So, so a lot of the houses are like poured reinforced concrete, and they use a lot of marble for the floors and tile and things like that. But where they do use wood is for the doors and the windows, and obviously the door jambs and thresholds and all that. And they do this interlocking sort of carpentry there. Craftsmanship, so that everything closes over like what you see at the bottom of this door. And that's what seals the weather out. They don't even need weather stripping. Not only that, they use used motor oil to seal the wood. It's genius. Makes the bugs don't eat the wood. It's awesome. We don't do that here because, you know, environmentalism, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. And the only issue I would say with this is I didn't hang these doors, and I mentioned it a little earlier, a couple minutes ago. If I was hanging these doors with this sill, that front edge there would be a little tighter. Right there. I would have brought that a little bit tighter, but it's fine now because I did make that custom threshold there with the rubber. If I was doing this completely myself, those tolerances would have been such where you don't actually need the rubber weather stripping. It's a nice thing to add regardless. Let's talk about the front door here real quick. They had this Dutch door made. And the problem here is a couple problems. Both of these sections of door were sagging, and so you had to lift up on it to hit the strike plate. The other thing was that this door, when you closed it, it doesn't do it now, so I can't show you, but it was rattling back and forth quite a way. So I had to move these 3/8 of an inch towards the stop. Longer screw for the top hinge, longer screw for the top hinge. And when I removed the screws down here, what happened was it still sagged. The truth is, what I didn't notice at first was that it was never really aligned perfectly. You can see here, when it hits the strike plate, it's pretty low. You see how that's uneven? Like, that should be up. Really, this strike plate should be lower. That wasn't even something that was on my radar. We're okay now because what I ended up doing was I had to pad that lower hinge to pivot everything up. So now it's all working fine. But the guy who hung this door did not know what he was doing. And when I took these hinges out to do that, 2 of these screws that he had put in, they looked correct from the front. But really, all he put in there was 2 little short machine screws. They were less than 3/8 of an inch long, the threaded section. They weren't even biting anything. So I guess my point here is, there's guys up here everywhere. There's bad work being done everywhere. I hear people complaining all the time. Look, I'm the guy people call after they've had things done and they paid even more than they pay me. And I'm not cheap, to have something done, and then they're not happy with it. And oftentimes the homeowners don't really understand exactly what's going on. They just know, hey, there's air coming through this door. Why does my door make all this noise when the wind blows? What's going on? And they just had the work done. And they had a bunch of other issues with this particular door. I'm not going to go picking apart, but the construction on that door is not good. When you look at, and I've done Dutch doors before. I mean, I did one really nice custom one. There's a picture folder of it from, I did it 21 years ago. It's a beautiful door. And when I did my Dutch door section, I did the lower section higher so you can lean on it. And I built a shelf into it. It's pretty nice, if I do say so myself. But, you know, when you hang this stuff, you got to know what you're doing. It's just crazy. The point is, I'm constantly being called in to repair things that oftentimes were just done incorrectly. And so people are paying to have things done twice. And then when I'm doing it, there's people watching me do it now, right? Like these guys were watching it, right? Because they didn't watch the other guys do it. And so they see this craftsmanship. And it just jumps out at them. And so I get all these crazy accolades like, you're a master craftsman. You're the best carpenter I've ever seen. I hear this stuff all the time. I don't go around thinking that. If I did, I'd be a real jerk. You know, you can't walk around thinking that you're the best at everything. That's crazy. But more and more, over the decades, I realized that there's just a difference between people. You know, some people are just trying to get paid, get in and out as quick as possible. And they know what rates are. They know what going rates are for certain trades. It's a monkey see, monkey do kind of thing with a lot of guys. You hire these guys, they were shown how to do something. They do it the same way every time, no matter what the situation is that they're being presented with. And they don't know how to solve the issue. And really, all it takes is slowing down and assessing every little part to figure out how to make it better. And most guys just don't want to put the time into doing it that way, so it's a problem. But I'm just kind of shocked is all I'm saying. And it's not just this house. It's what I've been hearing from all these other people up here. Like I said, I've been talking to other guys in the trades up here who've watched me do this, and they're telling me, they're like, dude, you're a master craftsman. There's not people up here like you. That blows my mind. So if you're up here or any other place, especially an affluent area, Monterey, Peninsula, I'd love to come up here more often to do this work. Have tools will travel. Let me sleep in the van in your driveway and we'll get it done. Let me just show you, point one more thing out here on this threshold I forgot to show you. You don't see any screws, do you? So there's a plug right here. There's a plug right here. And there's a plug right there. So no filler there, and those plugs, again, they were cut out of this piece here. This is not brain surgery. It's not that difficult to do, and all I'm saying is if you own a house and you're willing to pay somebody to do it right, try to find a guy that knows this stuff. You know, show this video to the guy you're hiring. And dude, if you're a carpenter or you call yourself one and you're watching this video, I'm not picking on you in particular. You might be better at this than I am. You might be. But for those of you that don't know what I'm saying, now you know. Step up your game, man. You know, I don't know what people are thinking. I know. I hear my mother's voice in my head right now. Michael, not everybody's like you. I care. I care about the client. I care about other people. And when people are paying me money to do something, I'm going to do that job to the best of my ability. Now, sometimes it's an issue because people don't know what they're getting themselves into when it comes to old houses. You know, we had this discussion before I came up here. I said, hey, I start tearing into this 99.9% of the time, I'm going to find other issues that we got to deal with. And as I said, I wasn't supposed to spend 3 days working on this stuff. I haven't even gotten to the windows yet. I got to finish this video so I can start doing that. So it's, you know, they think, hey, he'll be here for a few days, but now there's going to be a few days more. That happens a lot. And with these guys, these are not like super wealthy people here. There's other people up here. A guy like me, I could probably come in and take my time and do things right. And those people are you know, affluent enough to where that doesn't care. All they care about is getting things done right. But what I see personally, and what I've heard from other people here, is that they are paying crazy amounts of money to have things done, and it's still not being done that well, which blows my mind. And it hurts me a little bit because even for the wealthy people who can't afford it, so to speak, they're not happy. And what happens is it gives all of us a bad name. It makes us all look bad. If you're a carpenter, you're a craftsman, and you happen to do good quality work, it's like attorneys. You know how people don't like attorneys oftentimes? I don't like when I meet somebody, tell them what I do, and they've got like disdain for me because they've paid money for decades to people to get work done that turned out to be shoddy work. I don't want to do shoddy work. So I'm just throwing it out there. At any rate, I got to get back to work. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I haven't even had a chance really to investigate on my own and ride the bike around as much as I wanted to, but these people have been so gracious. They've been taking me out to dinner and cooking dinner and introducing me to their friends and everything else. It's really been a wonderful experience. I really like it here. I could live in a place like this. Anyhow, that's it. I got to get to work. I hope you enjoyed this. Again, be good. Be good humans. Take pride in what you do. You know, if you're going to do something, it's worth doing well. Stop half-assing your life. All right? I'll catch you in the next one. We just had a great dinner and I am stuffed. Monterey is beautiful. Hey, say hi, Rich.
Good evening.